And we welcome Joe Huemann to the program. Joe is a longtime WQA member. He runs Huemann Water Conditioning in Johnsburg, Illinois. That's right up near the border with Wisconsin. And I know for my own purposes of the discussion today, it's great to know, Joe, a little bit about the activity and the operation itself, because I've been to your place. And so it's fun to talk to you and have you on the podcast. And we'll just kind of talk a little bit about a variety of things here relative to the water treatment business. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
And glad you're here.
Thank you, Wes.
And glad you're with WQA and that you have been for so many years. Why don't you take people through your journey and your family's journey through the system?
Well, my father started in the water conditioning business in 1963, and WQA, as we know it today, kind of reorganized in the early 70s. But it was always talked about around our kitchen table, growing up in the business. So being involved with the industry and the WQA has been always in our blood and part of Huemann Water Conditioning. Our company started in 1963, but my dad, my grandpa, my great-grandfather were all well drillers. So right now we've been in the water business in the county here 120 years, but the water treatment part of the business for 60 years. And part of WQA in its forefront in the 60s and 70s, forever. Always been a 100% member.
So how's it going? What I mentioned that I have been to your facility, but just tell us what do you provide? What services do you offer?
I guess I look at Huemann Water Conditioning. We would be a more residential. We do commercial. If it's above 2-inch piping, I'm a licensed plumber in Illinois, and I have 10 other plumbers on our staff that are our employees. But 99% of the work we do is water treatment, reverse osmosis, softeners, filters, delivering salt, rent water softeners, service what we sell. So I guess that's what we do. But we we don't do too much, not really industrial, but commercial stuff, apartment buildings, restaurants, schools, 2-inch pipe and lower.
So I have to ask you that kind of one of the first questions that comes to mind after all these years, what's been changing for you in the last few years?
That's a good question. The change. You look at the moving target of what the government regulations of what we're dealing with, some of that stuff. This morning we had a mandatory meeting having to do sexual harassment training with all of our guys in the state of Illinois, and we have to have that done. And if we don't, so I mean, you look at outside regulations. That's what being part of WQA and getting your guys licensed and certified. Back in 1968, the Illinois law was written that water softeners were exempt from the plumbing code, water softeners. And that is still today. But reverse osmosis, filters, those are not. Those are supposed to be installed by licensed plumbers. There's not enough water police to go around to find that. But I've had my plumbing license 30 years, and I have 10 other plumbers that are license of my employees. One of my guys took his state license test yesterday. So it's interesting. We don't have to be licensed plumbers, but the health department, they know who we are, and they don't bother us because they, along those lines, in terms of getting stopped for doing plumbing work or different stuff like that. But that is something that we've stated. Government regulations has been always a moving target. We talk about sodium discharge. That's been around forever. I mean, you look at that, and it's. We had a meeting last week up in Wisconsin, WQA at the Dells in Waukesha, Wisconsin. This week is going to lake water, and because they want to limit the chlorides and different stuff. So that's been an ongoing thing. It rears its head and comes around. But then what has changed? I guess what stayed the same. People still need water. Okay, drinking water. You look at. I asked my dad, back in when I was in grade school in 1972, about what are arsenic, and my dad says arsenic is naturally occurring. It's just in the water, and a few years ago that the big arsenic thing really started hitting. And you look at the regulations of that maximum contamination level and different things are lower. It's always been there, but now they're just changing some of that stuff.
Yeah, has anything surprised you over the years as it's evolved and changed? Or again, you kind of alluded to many of these things being pretty much status quo, but then just a change here and there, right?
Well, interesting. You and I spoke earlier in the week, and that was one of the things you said, Joe. I'm going to ask about a surprise, and that's one of the reasons why you want to be kind of involved with WQA, because you might not get surprised. Okay, because what's happening in other parts of the country, you learn about that. So I was a volunteer fireman for 31 years. Okay, and so part of our training as a volunteer is you didn't want to be surprised. You want to be in control of, when you fought a fire, you want to be in control. Okay, and so we trained, and even a volunteer, we trained. And so I guess I'm looking at being involved with WQA. I'm going to say I don't think I've been surprised, because when you're involved with WQA, you go to the meetings, you go to this, or you hear what's going on in other parts of the country or the world, and you don't get surprised. All right, you're going to say, hey, when that comes knocking on our door, you say, well, we've seen this before. So when you and I spoke earlier in the week, and I said, I don't think I've been surprised. Okay, because you're involved with WQA.
Well, have you changed anything? How about that? Or responding to customers, has that changed at all?
Well, we're still old fashioned. I mean, in terms of stuff, I like to answer the phone. You look at technology. Right now, you look at this artificial intelligence stuff that's coming about. Boy, that's a good question. Will you change? You have to change, okay? But I mean, I look at just our installation techniques. We still we like to solder pipes, but now you have ProPress, okay, with copper. But then now you look at CPVC or the PEX piping, and you have to change, with that kind of stuff, with installation and training and making sure you're involved with that. Your tools on your truck, you used to just have like I said, torch, and now you have to have different methods of hooking and disconnecting softeners, being involved with that. I look at having a database. You look at technology, computers. We are looking at having each guy have his own iPad. I mean, other people have been doing it for a while. We're slow to that a little bit along those lines. We're not paperless yet, okay? But you look at having a good database and keeping track of your customers' information, because when people call up and say, where do you live at? And you look it up and you say, oh, geez, that's Wes's old house. He moved, we were in that house since 1972, or, we have records back, and people like keeping records of what you've done and different things. And people said they like that.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can also imagine somebody listening to this, Joe, and thinking, well, maybe, maybe the water treatment business is for me, and they're getting in. What are some of the secrets to success as a dealer?
I will say we keep it simple. We're not really sales driven. We sell a lot of water treatment stuff. We're a little bit unorthodox. I have 3 salesmen. My salesmen are salary or hourly. We're not paid commission. But if we have good times and we have a good month, then we do. I do give bonuses along those lines. But we're not so sales driven as a company that we have to sell. We've been very, very service orientated along our lines. And like I said, we sell a lot of salt. We deliver salt. We filter changes. We're not just sales driven. We're service driven, I would have to say.
Yeah. You mentioned salt here, and I remember you telling us about your salt program that you have. What is it, once a month? You've got a pickup program. Can you talk about that?
The first Saturday of every month. So we do that, and we've been doing that for 45, 47 years, or the first Saturday of every month. Now, it's interesting because our Salt Sales Saturday came out of my dad going to a WQA meeting, and another dealer talked about doing this, and he came home in the mid-'70s, And I think the first salt sale we did was probably 1977. And I remember we sold 90 bags of salt that day, 90 bags. And I said, man, if we could just get to like 150 bags a day, and we'd have the world by the butt, But we do that. We do a lot more than that now. But Salt Sales Saturday is the first Saturday of every month. We have a cash and carry, no credit cards. And last Saturday, just last week, we had just under 600 cars come through in 7 hours. And we have a drive-through. In our parking lot, we have 3 lanes. I have high school kids come in and hump salt. It's kind of like baling hay, but they just pop their trunk. They put salt in, and they're in and out in minutes, cash and carry, and it's a pretty simple operation.
Joe, this is unbelievable. You're selling salt. You're obviously you're servicing the customer. You are giving high school kids some extra money. This is great.
Yeah. The Salt Sales Saturday, once again, my dad says, what else can we sell them when they're here? They come for their salt, okay? And they pick up filters and they pick up other things, but we want to get them in and out, make it simple. Everyone's life is really hectic. And selling the salt is something that we're still selling it. It's still part of our industry. The saltless systems, we get calls, on that. One of the things you asked earlier, what's has changed? But at our general area, we have iron and hardness, high hardness, the 20 to 30 grains of hardness in iron. And so the technology that we still use is still a viable solution.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like really what you have discovered, and WQA was helpful to that, is, finding that problem that a customer might have and figuring out how to solve it. And I know it sounds pretty basic, but that's really, that example is just perfect for that.
Yeah, we have a good rental base also. You look at things, we started rental water softeners, and, some dealers don't want to rent, some people do. It has to do with what's in your life. Rental water softeners are a long-term, selling units, you make your money or your profits or your money a little faster. I tell people, if you don't know, let's put a rental in, and I'll put my money where my mouth is at, and let's put a rental in there, and make it work, and then give them the option to buy or work that out with them.
Right. Hey, and I know you're big on getting your team certified, professional certification. Tell us about that and why you're so strong on that.
Well, you look at the WQA certification. I look at, oftentimes the other the owners say, Joe, I can see you getting certified, but why do you put all that time into your people? And I said, well, it's an investment. I really believe that I want to give them a bullet in their holster, per se, to say, hey, I'm certified, I can do this. And I want to invest in them. So if something would happen to Huemann water conditioning, that we would go out of business, they would have a bullet in their holster to go someplace else in the industry and be a viable asset to someone else. So I would rather have an educated employee that leaves than a dumb one that stays. I shouldn't say it that way, but basically, just because you're certified doesn't mean you know it all, but it means that you're investing in yourself. And so I like to get them certified. And then, once you get them certified, you do have the continuing education. And that is, not a challenge, but it is something that you're always like, okay, who needs credit? Once again, last week, I took 6 of our guys to up to the Wisconsin Dells, to the Wisconsin WQA meeting up there for seat time, okay? And we do that. So you do get involved, and you get involved with continuing education, and always resharpening the pencil. It's a good thing to make us all rethink and make you resharpen your pencil.
Also, lastly, I want to get your take on convention. Our convention for 2024 will be in Orlando, March 5th, 6th, and 7th. And you've been to many conventions over the years. Tell us about the value and why somebody would want to attend, and if they're somewhat on the fence about this, what you can say that would make them excited.
Well, I look at conventions. I believe they're very beneficial. You realize that I will say misery loves company in terms of when you run a business. You feel like you have an issue to deal with. You realize that other people have the same issues or challenges, and you can overcome them. You meet a lot of people, and even if you meet with them, you see them once a year. You fall back into it and you share ideas. What kind of trucks you're buying? Where do you find your employees? How did you handle this situation? How do you handle that situation? And you realize that you're not alone, in that your fellow competitors nationwide, we're all. I like to tell people we have the same circus, different clowns. Okay, and we can get around there. So convention time is very good. Even you go there for 1 or 2 days, or you go there, share your ideas, you get your knowledge, and you realize that you're not alone in what you're doing, and you pick up different ideas of how to do things. It's a great experience, and you meet friends. And like I said, they're oftentimes low maintenance friends, and sometimes they're people hey, you're traveling and you're going to stop at this dealership on the way because as a family we like to travel drive, and you say, hey, I will tell you, growing up, every family vacation that we would go to, we would stop at 2 or 3 different water softener dealers. And my wife and I just drove out to Idaho, and this last year, a month ago, and we stopped at 2 different water dealers on the way because I wanted just, even for an hour, just to say hello, because we were in Idaho and Montana, South Dakota, Oregon, Washington, and I think we stopped at 5 different water people, and just to say hello and see their operations, and you meet people from all over the country. So
great inspiration, Joe. Appreciate it. Great catching up with you on the podcast. Joe Huemann Water Conditioning, Johnsburg, Illinois. Thanks so much for joining us.
Great talking with you, Wes. Always a pleasure.